Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of Delicious Death by Byrd Nash, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me for chapter 1. Be careful what you wish for, especially during the season of the dead. Admit it, you're bored, said my maid and assistant Anne Marie. I groaned. There hasn't been a dead body for over a week. Poor you, she said with mock severity as she stripped the sheets off my bed before carrying them from the room. How could the occasional seance ask about Aunt Matilda's recipes or inquiries about lost wills compare to the grand adventure of vanquishing a monster in the beyond? Of course I was bored. Sighing, I pulled back the curtain of my suite at the Crown Hotel to see that Allenbon, Port city and capital of Sarnes, was still drowning in icy rain. The dreary weather and thick fog acted like a smothering blanket of gloom. Behind me, there was a knock at the door, which Anne Marie promptly answered. A female voice asked, "Is Elinor about?" It was Dr. Charlotte LaRue, the coroner in charge of the city morgue. Maybe something interesting would happen today after all. "Hello, Charlotte. What brings you to my side of town? How did you escape your students today?" I asked as she handed off her coat and soaked umbrella to Anne Marie. "They are too busy studying for finals to pay attention to me, so I thought I'd come and demand you treat me to lunch." Charlotte was in her 50s, a thin, wiry woman with an oval face, a beaky nose, and prominent brown eyes. Today she wore her usual about-town mannish outfit of trousers, vest, and frock coat. The fabric was a gray tweed with a stock tie of small gray dots on a field of black. "We can catch up on all the gossip," she said, rubbing her chilled hands briskly. The Crown Hotel was one of 3 luxury hotels in Allenbon that offered residency suites. My suite included a master bedroom with an attached bathroom, a sitting room, a kitchenette, and a small room for a personal servant. Most meals I took in their banquet hall. When it was closed, I dined out or had a light tea in my suite. Charlotte and I chatted as we made our way down the carpeted stairs. It was past the prime lunch hour, and the main lobby was quiet, with only a few of the regulars reading newspapers in their favorite chairs. "There's been a shocking lack of dead bodies," was Dr. LaRue's comment, and her carrying voice, along with her unconventional outfit for a woman, received a few outraged male stares from behind rustling papers. "I was complaining about the same thing myself," I confided more quietly. "So boring that no one of interest has died in some violent, horrible manner in these past few months." Tall, narrow windows lined one wall of the Crown's dining room facing the street. The rain glazed the windows to gray, and it was no surprise that no one, not even a newsboy, braved the wet promenade. "Let's sit by the fireplace and shake off some of the damp," I suggested. The hotel's massive hearth gave off a cheerful warmth, and the paneled walls of deep mahogany wood, despite the size of the room, made for a cozy spot. The head waiter handed us cards printed with the day's specials. "Where is everyone today, Pierre? I thought the restaurant would be busy." "Many are taking lunch in their rooms, madam." "Is there any mulled wine to be had today?" "Oh, yes, madam. Shall I bring you some?" We both nodded agreement, and after he left with our order, Charlotte and I got down to a good chat. "Haven't seen Inspector Barbier for at least a month." The doctor spoke in her habitual abrupt way. Thinking the guardian might be ailing, I stopped by to see the gendarme to check on him. Barbier is as bored as we. Said it's all been domestic incidents. Nothing brings out the nasty at home more than being cooped indoors. Nothing really juicy for us to sink our teeth in. I asked, "Do you think it's pathetic that we wish people would die for our entertainment?" "Not pathetic at all. Some might call it ghoulish, but those are ordinary people living dull lives." It wasn't long before pewter mugs filled with spiced wine, a warm soup starter, and a basket of rolls made it to our table. Pierre glided away, a majestic black swan, to take care of another table. "It's the anniversary, isn't it?" asked Charlotte, while looking around the room as if there were a spy who might overhear us. 12 years ago last Wednesday. "Has Barbier made any progress with your father's murder?" "No, I'm afraid not. Whatever reason my father's watch was still in the hells turned out to be a dead end. Frustrating. Barbier and I had bonded that awful day 12 years ago. After discovering my father, I'd run into the street screaming for help, and it had been Barbier walking the street as a sergeant who had responded to my pleas. While other gendarme had fallen away from the case over the years, he had been promoted. Stubbornly, he kept working it. I think he felt it was his first big case, and not having a resolution to it was a personal insult. For some reason I couldn't explain, I had not shared with him or Charlotte the tale that the watch had told me through psychometry. The thought that my father had been murdered by someone he knew was too raw. Besides, psychometry would not stand up in a court of law. I needed hard evidence, a confession, a suspect. That's a hullabaloo back there. Did someone send back their meal? At the doctor's words, I finally paid attention to the noisy racket happening behind the swinging door that led back to the kitchen. Before I could answer, Henri Colbert, the manager of the Crown, was at our table. Usually impeccable in both manner and address, he now appeared flustered. Madame Chalamet, his tone spoke of urgency and privacy. As he cleared his throat before saying in a strained voice, "There is a disagreement in the kitchen between Chef Peterson and his companion." Before he could say anything further, a saucepan came flying through the double doors and landed with a thud on the carpet. If the few diners in the hall stopped eating and stared at the cookware in stunned disbelief. A rush of excited chatter followed. I would be happy to serve as mediator, I told Colbert hastily. Placing my napkin to the side of my plate, I told Charlotte to wait for me before following him to the entrance to the kitchen. There he paused. It wouldn't help for me to enter. Claude always feels it is my fault that their love affair ended. No need for you to do so. I can manage him on my own. A look of relief passed over his face. Thank you, Madame Chalamet. I pushed open the door and walked into a shouting match. You don't love me. It was the same old story. The temperamental Claude Forçade was up to his old tricks, trying to make the head chef of the Crown, Gerard Peterson, feel guilty that he had a life. Victor only wanted to know how many eggs we wanted to order. This retort was rather muffled, for it came from under the work table where Master Chef Extraordinaire Gerard had sought sanctuary. At his words, a meat cleaver came down heavily, sticking itself into the butcher block counter. I saw how you looked at him. Claude, why would you think that? At my question, Claude turned to me and burst into tears, wailing. His arms flew over his head in a frantic, desperate plea. He's leaving. Did you know that? Leaving the Crown. I'm sure you're wrong about that, Claude. Monsieur Gerard loves being here. While Claude might be a ghost, when he threw one of his temper tantrums, his form became as substantial as anyone living. He was a very handsome young man in his late 20s, frozen at the age at which he had committed suicide. Black hair fell over his forehead, and he swept it back with a dramatic hand gesture, lifting his chin as he informed me. He has a wandering eye, I should know. I didn't want to get into an argument about who was right about something that had happened 3 years ago when Gerard made the mistake of kissing someone other than Claude. Yes, it had ended Claude's life, and it had been horrible, but on the other hand, wasn't terrorizing Gerard for years enough retribution? Perhaps if Claude hadn't died when he was young, his ghost would have a better perspective about life. But then again, spirits gained power from extreme emotions, and it was his possessive jealousy that prevented him from traveling to the afterlife. Instead, as a noise ghost, he made random appearances in the earthly plane to torment Gerard, forcing the chef to regret having a fling with a sous chef 20 years his junior. He's not leaving the Crown, I stated firmly. From under the table, Gerard contradicted me. But I am, Madame Chalet. Shocked at his desertion and the idea of no longer having access to my favorite dessert, it took me a moment to register the flurry of pots and pans that left from their hooks, smashing to the tile floor and making my ears ring. Generally, a ghost talker lets a noise ghost spend the energy they've gathered from the living. However, in a professional kitchen, there are far too many knives about. Someone could get seriously hurt. Explain yourself, chef, I shouted over the din. It's for the royal competition, the Winter Revels. Oh, well, that explained everything. This year, the annual arts and skills competition, sponsored by King Junon, was going to feature cooking. He's only leaving for the contest. You heard him, Claude. He'll be back. No, he won't. He'll find another to love. The ghost was sobbing now, but at least it had stopped throwing things. It was winding down like a tired clock nearing the end. Claude, do you remember when you fell in love with Gerard? Wasn't it in the summer? No, it was in the spring. The cherry trees were blooming when I applied to work here at the Crown. Ghosts followed patterns, and it was best for everyone to get Claude back into his old comfortable memories, which held far more of a grip on his spirit than current events. Remember how you admired him? I prompted. More than anyone, I had met no one like him before. His energy. He cooked like a madman on fire. Such passion. The ghost lost himself in his reminiscences, and the solidity of his form frayed, the power remaining, his manifestation fading. I gestured for Gerard to come out from under the table. Did he feel the same way? I think so. I can't remember. Forgetting wasn't unusual. As time passed, ghosts lost the ability to hold their memories, a dimension that we often see in the living, and a process greatly accelerated in the dead. The older the ghost, the less it really knew. I'm sure Gerard remembers, don't you? Prompted by me, Peterson knew what to say. After all, these scenes between him and the noise ghost were the reason I could afford a suite at the Crown, my job being to calm Claude down so Gerard could work his magic with food. They first asked me to dispose of him, a process of vanquishing a ghost from all three planes. But when I pointed out that meant Claude's soul would be destroyed and never reach the afterlife, Gerard had changed his mind. Claude Froissart was the most handsome assistant I ever had. I couldn't take my eyes off of him. How he trembled when I touched his hand holding the soup ladle. There was a sigh, a light breeze stirred up my hair, and what was left of Claude expired, snuffed out until the next time it sucked up enough energy to cause chaos again. He's gone. At my words, Gerard gave a heavy sigh and started shaking his head, throwing his hands up. When will Claude give up? It's been 3 years already. Was there something that set him off? I asked. Victor was asking about the egg order. He's one of our suppliers. He touched my arm, and then Claude exploded. Gerard rubbed his bald pate with both hands. It was sometimes hard to reconcile Claude's glowing description of his lover with Gerard. He had jowls, even a double chin, and small raisin eyes. But I had seen him in command of the kitchen, so understood Claude's infatuation. The man transformed when preparing food. He was a general leading the charge when it was the dinner hour, an artist consumed by his talent, who produced food fit for royalty. Tell me about the Winter Revels. When will you be leaving? The King's Winter Revels were an annual competition held to highlight various artists and trades. Last year it had been painters, and the year before that, silversmiths. I was leaving next Tuesday. I suggest going as soon as possible. Claude's spirit should be quiet for about a week, not much longer. But what if he comes back when Chef is gone? This question was from Henri, who crept into the kitchen. The rest of the kitchen staff trickled in and started cleaning up the mess Claude had left behind, taking pots off the gas burners and retrieving knives from the floor. Just tell him that Chef is not here, but don't imply that he's gone for long. Speak as if he just stepped away and could return at any time. Ghosts find it hard to keep track of time like we do. Hopefully that will keep him confused enough until the competition is over. Come find me if he causes any trouble. At the swinging door, I turned around and added to Henri, "It's not like I'm busy."